I used to believe, just like many of my neighbors and patients, that cancer after 60 was a cruel lottery of family history and fate, but sitting with thousands of older Americans over the years has forced me to see a different and far more unsettling truth. The danger is not only in your bloodline, it is on your plate, woven into the food you take for granted each morning and each night. National health reports have confirmed again and again that cancer is the second leading cause of death for those past 60, and every time I look closer at the meals of my patients, I can see why. The very habits they thought were harmless, the quick slice of processed meat at breakfast, the pastry enjoyed with coffee, the easy frozen dinner, all of them stack quiet damage on cells that are already slower to repair. The early injury rarely screams, it only whispers, and that whisper is easy to mistake for nothing more than aging. By the time the voice is loud, the fire is already burning. That is the reason I am speaking with such urgency tonight. I do not want you to hear only the risk. I want you to hear the hope. Because there is a move you can make tomorrow morning before you even step out of your kitchen. Instead of beginning your day with the bacon strip or frosted pastry that seems like a comfort, try lifting a bowl of fresh berries and a warm cup of green tea. That single action does not cure decades of wear, but it shifts your body's chemistry in a healthier direction. The strength of this choice is its simplicity. It costs little, it is available in every grocery store, and it slides easily into any routine without forcing you to feel deprived. The weakness is that one small step is not enough by itself, which is why I will guide you through many layers, each one building on the last, until the picture of your health begins to shift. In my years of practice, I have seen too many people wave away fatigue or stomach upset as normal aging, only to later face a diagnosis that might have been delayed or prevented. That is why I want you to remember this refrain. After 60, every food you choose is either feeding harm or feeding defense. Tonight, you will learn how to tip the balance, and in the very next moment, I will explain why cells at this age cannot bounce back like they once did, and how that one fact changes the risk of even the most ordinary meals. So tonight, as you listen, I want you to take one action already. Walk into your kitchen before bed, look at tomorrow's breakfast, and decide to swap one harmful food for one protective food. That is your first prescription from me, and it may be the most important one you ever keep. I often hear older patients laugh as they wave a hand and say, "It is only a slice of ham, it is only a sausage on Sunday, it is only a sweet bar before bed." Surely that cannot matter. But after sitting with thousands of men and women over the years, I have learned a harder truth. It is never the single feast that tips the balance. It is the steady rhythm of small choices that carve a path for disease. I remember walking through a small town in the Midwest where 3 generations of one family faced the same cancer. At first, they believed it was in their blood. But when I looked at their tables, I saw the real inheritance. The same fried dinners, the same sweet sodas, the same quick meats. The pattern was not in their DNA, it was in their daily plates. So I want to ask you directly, almost as if we were sitting at your kitchen counter. In the past 7 days, how many times did you reach for something processed, fried, or sweet, and tell yourself it was too small to matter? If the answer is you cannot remember, that itself is the warning sign. The strength of pausing to ask this question now is that it places you back in control. Awareness is the first medicine. The weakness of dismissing it is that the damage does not stop for your excuses. It stacks quietly in cells that, after 60, cannot mend as fast as they once did. By the time the symptoms call your attention, the climb is steeper and the chances are fewer. I cannot forget a man named Robert, who used to chuckle when I warned him that his daily sandwich could carry a cost. 2 years later, he returned to my office with tears in his eyes and a diagnosis that shook his family. He told me if I had taken your words seriously back then, maybe my story would be different. His regret became my lesson, and now I hand it to you. Tonight, I want you to do something simple. Before you sleep, write down the foods you reach for most often. Circle the ones that heal, underline the ones that hurt. That small act will show you whether you are building a shield or feeding a fire. And in the very next step, I will take you beneath the surface and explain why the aging cell does not bounce back the way it once did, and how that single reality changes the meaning of every bite you take. There is a quiet truth about the body after 60 that I wish someone had told me earlier in my career. By this age, the repair crews inside you are fewer, slower, and less efficient. Every cell that takes a hit from poor food choices or from daily wear and tear needs more time to mend, and many never quite return to their original strength. Imagine a city where the maintenance team has shrunk to half its size. The potholes stay open longer, the cracks spread wider, and before long the roads become dangerous. That is exactly how an older body begins to feel the weight of food choices. Each fried snack, each sugary drink, each strip of processed meat adds to the strain, and without enough repair, the small injuries pile up into something larger. The beauty of understanding this reality is that knowledge gives you power. When you know that your inner crew is slower, you can ease their load by cutting back on the foods that cause the most harm, and by supplying nutrients that strengthen the repair they can still do. The danger of ignoring this is that silent damage turns into a storm you cannot control. I have met countless people who laughed at their fatigue, saying it was just what happens after 60, or who dismissed their digestive upset as nothing more than age. One man told me his wife complained that he seemed too tired to join her on their evening walks. He brushed it off until the diagnosis came, and suddenly those little signals were no longer little. His regret was heavy, and it did not have to be that way. I am asking you not to wait for regret. Tonight, notice your own body. Ask yourself if you wake up more tired than when you went to bed, if your stomach troubles last longer than they once did, if your energy feels more fragile. Instead of dismissing them, write them down. That single act of attention is your prescription for today, because writing them makes you see the pattern you might have ignored. Remember this refrain: small cracks left unattended become roads you can no longer travel. In the next part, you will hear the story of a woman who thought her struggles were simply aging, until she discovered a far more serious truth that changed her life. I will never forget Margaret, a 74-year-old woman whose story could belong to any of us. For years, she brushed aside her constant fatigue, her uneasy stomach, and the slow drain of her energy. She told her children it was just the way life feels after 70. She told her doctor it was probably nothing serious. Inside her home, the refrigerator was stocked with deli slices, smoked sausages, and shelves of cookies and snack cakes, the very foods she reached for out of habit and convenience. To her, they were harmless comforts, but to her body, they were fuel for the very disease she feared most. When the words early-stage colon cancer finally arrived, the shock spread through her family like a cold wave. The strength of her story is that the disease was caught early enough to allow surgery and recovery, a chance to keep living and to hold her granddaughter's hand at the playground. The weakness and the heartbreak is that those operations and those sleepless nights of fear might never have been necessary if she had taken her own signals seriously years before. I remember the way she looked at me after her operation and whispered, "If I had listened sooner, this might not have been my road." Her regret has become my warning to you. Please do not dismiss your own fatigue, your lingering stomach pains, or your unexplained weight changes as nothing more than age. They may be the body's quiet alarm. The small action I ask of you tonight is simple. Sit with yourself or with someone you love and ask whether there are signs you have ignored, signs you have excused away as just getting older. Write them down. Bring them to your doctor. That single step could save years of your life and spare your family the same fear Margaret's family carried. And now that you have heard her story, let me turn to the table itself, because the foods we choose each day can either heal or harm. In the next part, you will hear about the first food I warn every patient about, a food that silently feeds cancer cells more than almost any other. The first food I warn every patient about is processed meat. Those neatly wrapped slices of bacon, those hot dogs at the ball game, those cold cuts stacked for a quick sandwich may seem like ordinary comforts, but the World Health Organization has placed them in the very same category as tobacco, labeling them proven carcinogens. The danger comes from the nitrates and nitrites that preserve them. Once they are cooked on your stove or digested in your gut, they can transform into nitrosamines, compounds that strike directly at your DNA like tiny saboteurs breaking into the foundation of your home. In younger years, the repair crews of your body might patch the harm, but after 60, those crews are slower and smaller, and the damage lingers. I think of a man named Thomas who worked at a hardware store. Every lunch for 20 years was the same quick sandwich made of ham slices from a package. When stomach cancer forced him into surgery, he told me if I had known those slices carried this risk, I would have changed my habit long ago. The advantage of cutting back is clear. Risk begins to fall as soon as you replace those meats with safer choices like roasted chicken, grilled fish, or even beans. The weakness of ignoring the warning is that every bite adds invisible scars that may one day form into something far harder to treat. The second food I caution you about is the fried or heavily charred meal. Frying at high heat creates acrylamide, and grilling until black brings chemicals that laboratory studies have shown to mutate DNA. Imagine pouring soot into the delicate gears of a watch and expecting it to keep perfect time. That is what these foods do inside you. And when your antioxidant defenses are already weaker with age, the injury lasts longer, opening the door for disease. The strength of reducing fried and charred foods is that your body can redirect energy to healing rather than fighting smoke and fire from your plate. The weakness of pretending it does not matter is that week after week, you layer inflammation and mutation risk until the odds tilt against you. Tonight, I want you to take one small action. Open your refrigerator and freezer and count how many packages of processed meat, how many fried leftovers, or how many charred pieces are waiting inside. Ask yourself honestly if they belong in the body you are trying to protect. Remove one, just one, and replace it with something fresh. That is the first shield you can raise. And as we move forward, I will show you the next everyday item that feeds cancer cells more quietly than most people ever realize. The third food I warn you about is the sugary processed snack, the innocent-looking cookie with your coffee, the pastry you grab on the way to work, the sweet cereal that promises energy but delivers something far more dangerous. These foods do not only raise blood sugar for a moment, they create a hormonal storm inside you, driving insulin higher, forcing your cells to live in an environment where cancer has an easier time taking root. Think of sugar as fertilizer for weeds. It does not feed what you want to grow. It feeds what can harm you. Research from the National Cancer Institute has shown that chronically high insulin and glucose are linked to greater risk of breast, colorectal, and pancreatic cancers. I think of a woman named Helen who loved her morning muffin and her nightly cookie. She believed these small rituals were harmless treats of age. Years later, she faced both diabetes and breast cancer. With tears in her eyes, she told me, "I wish I had seen those small bites for what they really were." The advantage of cutting back on sweets is that your hormones calm, inflammation eases, and your immune system stands taller. The weakness of ignoring them is that every bite quietly fuels the fire you fear. The fourth danger is alcohol. One glass on a special occasion may not undo you, but the regular habit of drinking is a documented carcinogen. The American Cancer Society lists alcohol as a cause of cancers of the mouth, throat, liver, breast, and colon. The risk is not only from ethanol, but from acetaldehyde, the toxic compound it becomes as your body processes it. Imagine a solvent that dissolves the very locks that protect your DNA. In younger years, the liver may clear it fast, but after 60, the poison lingers, striking harder and staying longer. I remember a man named James who believed a nightly glass of red wine was good for his heart. When liver cancer forced him into treatment, he told me if I had understood the trade I was making, I would have stopped years ago. The strength of limiting alcohol is that your body can restore balance and resilience. The weakness of brushing it off is that the damage multiplies when it stacks with poor diet or old smoking habits. Tonight, I ask you to take one small action. Open your pantry and your cabinet. Look at the boxes of sweets and the bottles waiting on the shelf. Remove just one. Replace it with a bowl of fresh fruit or a warm cup of herbal tea. That single move tilts your chemistry in the right direction. And as we continue, I will take you to another category: the smoked and salted foods that carry their own hidden dangers. The fifth danger I must warn you about hides in foods many of us call tradition. The smoked fish on the weekend table, the jar of salty pickled vegetables that reminds us of childhood, the sausages kept for quick meals. They taste like comfort, but they carry a darker cost. Research from Japan's National Cancer Center and the World Cancer Research Fund has shown that smoked and salt-preserved foods are strongly linked to higher risk of stomach cancer. The reason is chemical. Salt and smoke together create nitroso compounds, toxins that erode the stomach lining and attack DNA. Picture salt not just as flavor, but as acid slowly wearing down the walls of your most delicate organ. Seniors are more vulnerable because stomach acid is weaker with age, leaving these chemicals to linger and harm longer. I remember a woman named Anna who loved her daily plate of smoked fish and pickled radish. She believed it was part of a healthy, old-fashioned diet. When stomach cancer struck, her doctors pointed to those very habits. She told me through tears, if I had known these foods could hurt me, I would have saved them for rare occasions. The advantage of reducing these foods is that your stomach lining has a chance to heal, your immune defenses strengthen, and antioxidants from fresh produce can finally do their work. The weakness of ignoring them is that decades of exposure strip away protection until disease finds the opening it has been waiting for. The sixth danger circles us back to processed meat, the bacon, ham, and hot dogs that the World Health Organization has already declared proven carcinogens. They may seem convenient and affordable, but convenience is not worth the silent damage that builds over years. I think of families who rely on these meats daily because they are quick, only to later face diagnoses that steal their independence. The strength of replacing them with poultry, fish, or beans is that risk can drop significantly. The weakness of keeping them as a staple is that every bite adds to a debt your body may not be able to pay. Tonight I ask you to do something simple. Open your refrigerator and pantry. Look at the jars of pickled vegetables, the packages of smoked fish, the stacks of cold cuts. Remove just one. Replace it with something fresh and nourishing. That act is more than housekeeping. It is self-defense. And now that we have cleared the table of danger, let us turn to the foods that fight for your health, the everyday allies that strengthen your body against cancer. After speaking of the foods that harm, I want to remind you that the body after 60 is not without defense. It still has allies waiting to serve you if you choose to feed them. Picture a plate of leafy greens, spinach, and kale, shining like shields, carrying antioxidants that sweep away the sparks of oxidative stress before they burn. Imagine a bowl of berries, deep blue and red, each one a tiny warrior armed with anthocyanins proven to slow or block the growth of cancer cells. Think of whole grains and fiber as the broom of the body, cleaning the colon, lowering the risk of cancer, and keeping digestion steady. These are not just poetic images. They are findings supported by the American Cancer Society, which urges us to fill at least half of every plate with vegetables and fruits for protection. I think of a man named Daniel, who once lived on sandwiches stacked with cold cuts. When he changed his lunches to bowls of greens, beans, and berries, his life changed. Within months, his digestion steadied, his blood pressure eased, and his doctor smiled, as lab results showed a lower risk for the very diseases he once feared. The advantage of welcoming these foods into your routine is that they strengthen your body's inner defenses, calming inflammation and building resilience. The weakness of ignoring them is that you leave your body exposed, stripped of its natural shield, facing threats without armor. Tonight, I invite you to make one small but powerful move. Add a handful of fresh greens or a cup of berries to your dinner. Let that be your signal to yourself that you are not powerless, that you are choosing allies over enemies. And as we continue, I will step beyond the plate to show you how the way you move and the way you rest can change your risk just as much as what you eat. Even the cleanest plate of food cannot save you if the rest of your life leaves your body unguarded. Sleep, movement, and stress are not extras, they are pillars. Sleep is the night shift crew that repairs DNA and strengthens the immune system while you dream. Without it, the soldiers of your defense show up half-armed. Movement is the river that washes through every cell, carrying oxygen, balancing weight, and lowering inflammation. Without it, the river slows, toxins pool, and the banks of your health erode. Stress relief is the light that lowers cortisol, the hormone that, when too high, opens doors for disease. Without that light, your inner defenses stumble in the dark. Science confirms this. The Centers for Disease Control and the American Heart Association both affirm that adults who sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, move their bodies daily, and manage stress actively have far lower risks of chronic disease and cancer. I think of a retired teacher named Carol who once lived exhausted, falling asleep in her chair after long nights of television. When she decided to honor bedtime and take a morning walk with her neighbor, everything shifted. Within weeks, her energy lifted, her blood sugar steadied, and she laughed that she felt 10 years younger. The strength of caring for these 3 habits is that they multiply the power of every healthy food you eat. The weakness of neglecting them is that you send your body into battle with half its army missing. Tonight, I invite you to choose one action. Set an alarm, not for waking up, but for going to bed. Or, promise yourself a 10-minute walk tomorrow morning. That single choice is not small. It is the hinge on which your future turns. And now, in the next part, I will bring all of this together into one message you can carry forward into the rest of your life. Your life will not transform in one dramatic leap. It will transform in the quiet choices you repeat, day after day, meal after meal. We have walked together through the dangers of processed meats, fried and charred meals, sugary snacks, alcohol, and smoked or pickled foods. And you have seen how each of them chips away at your defenses. We have also uncovered the allies that stand ready to protect you, the leafy greens that serve as shields, the berries that fight like small warriors, the grains and fibers that sweep your body clean, the sleep that repairs you in the night, the movement that flows like a river, and the calm that shines like light in your cells. The choice is yours, and it is powerful. I think of a couple I treated, both in their 60s, who once lived on fast food and late nights of television. They decided to shift, one meal, one walk, one earlier bedtime at a time. Within 6 months, their weight dropped, their blood sugar steadied, and they told me with pride that they felt 10 years younger. The strength of embracing change is that you add years of independence, energy, and presence with those you love. The weakness of ignoring it is that you surrender those years to hospital rooms and treatments you might have prevented. Tonight, I leave you with a clear and simple action. Choose one harmful food in your kitchen and remove it. Choose one protective food and add it. Release one draining habit and begin one nourishing habit. That is how prevention begins, not in a hospital ward, but in the quiet of your home, on the plate before you, in the bed where you rest, and in the peace of your own heart. You are not powerless. You carry the pen that writes the next chapter of your health, and it can begin tonight.